Hi, everyone, and welcome to And That's Why We Partner. I'm Brett Martinez, President and CEO of Redwood Credit Union, and your host. This is RCU's community podcast series where we talk to leaders of nonprofit organizations who are making San Francisco and the North Bay a better place for everyone. We partner with these organizations through things like grant making, volunteer hours, and sponsorships, because we see and deeply appreciate the positive impact that they make on our communities. I have a lot of fun doing these series because I love hearing about the amazing work going on all around us every single day. I hope you will as well. With that, I'm so excited to introduce today's guest. If you have been anywhere near the world of early education in the North Bay, you've heard her name, Susan Gilmore. Susan is the founder and president and CEO of North Bay Children's Center. Susan, welcome. Welcome to And That's Why We Partner. I'm happy to get the chance to chat with you today, and I want to thank you for being here. You've been a longtime champion for childcare and early education. Over the years, I've gotten to know a lot of the amazing work that NBCC has done, and I want to make sure our viewers and listeners know about it too. Does that sound good?
This sounds awesome, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We'd like to start our episodes with a little Did You Know section so the viewers and listeners can learn some of the basics about North Bay Children's Center and all of its different programs. So first and foremost, I want to acknowledge you, call out the fact that you founded NBCC 33 years ago, and it's quite amazing. It's quite the legacy. So 33 years worth of information in your head. We'll get just a little bit of that out today. So let's start with the first question. Tell us why you started NBCC 33 years ago, your mission, how the organization's programs and services have evolved over a 33-year period of time.
Sure. Well, I started my career as a preschool teacher in Marin County. So way back when I was a student teacher, I was working in a program in San Rafael that was it was state funded, poverty level families. It was in the basement of a building, very under-resourced, and it was a wonderful program. And then I had my first paying job, which was very different. And the whole time I was there, I kept thinking, if only these children over here in the first program I worked in had access to this kind of environment, that would be wonderful. And if this group, which was really homogeneous by design, was in a more culturally diverse environment, that would be great for these kids as well. So that was the thinking. The vision back then, when I was 28 years old, was that children would benefit from being in a culturally and economically diverse educational environment. And that was what started the vision for North Bay Children's Center 33 years ago. So our mission is to ensure that all children, particularly our most vulnerable, have access to those high quality early learning experiences that build the foundation for lifelong success. And this is the majority of the children we serve are very low income families that are able to live and work in the area because they can afford childcare. And I think it's important to explain that what's happened over the past 33 years, longer than 33 years ago, when I started my career in Marin County, 3- and 4-year-olds attended part-day, part-year programs and families were able to support themselves on one income. And that's changed dramatically over the years. And even back in the 80s, before starting North Bay Children's Center, we started to see moms returning to the workforce shortly after giving birth because dual incomes were necessary to support their families in the Bay Area. And that's just grown even more dramatically over the years.
Well, I hope you reflect on your answer. At some point in time, you take a look at this video. It's just that story over 33 years where it started and where it's at today. Pretty amazing. So congratulations on that. So let's head into our next section, on the horizon. So what's next for child care system itself? Not just you and the North Bay Children's Center, but you've got a lot of experience here. So what do you see this child care system during the heart of the pandemic? We were just talking about the pandemic a little while ago. It was on the brink of collapse. And how is it now, and what does that future look like?
So the childcare industry was struggling long before the pandemic. What the pandemic has done is really magnified the structural weaknesses of our nation's childcare system. And we lost over 60% of our licensed capacity in Marin and Sonoma County once the pandemic started. And so there were already waiting lists and shortages for and parents having a difficult time finding childcare, and childcare access or challenges with access. It was mainly around affordability and being able to provide parents with that couldn't afford childcare, that were left out of that system, with a way to be able to have their children attend. Now it's affecting everybody across the income spectrum. It's no longer about affordability. It's about access and availability. So we need to build back our childcare system. It is in crisis. Obviously, when we say that the pandemic has magnified the awareness and the need for investment in childcare, it does have everybody talking. And I think I know that the long-term solution is going to be some innovative cross-sector collaboration that includes government, nonprofits, philanthropists, and the business community to really come to the table with some different thinking and problem-solving skills.
Tell us about North Bay Children's Capital campaign to rebuild the C Street campus in Novato. I know it's a big deal for the kids, the community, especially right now.
Well, thank you for asking about that. It's finally happening. We acquired our headquarters, and we didn't really tell our audience that we provide care for over 650 children on a daily basis at 14 locations between Marin and Sonoma County. So most of those locations are satellite sites that are on elementary school properties, where we work closely with our school partners on providing that care. Our main headquarters is at Hamilton Field, and that's where we have a significant number of children that we serve. And that's where all of our administration is located, and all of our training. It takes place to support all those other satellite classrooms throughout the North Bay. And we acquired that space just about 25 years ago, when the base was officially closed. We went through that transition of the base, and we were able to get an acre and a half for $1 for the North Bay Children's Center. And now we're at a place where, in the pandemic, certainly slowed down everything, and fundraising as well as the permit process. But we are pulling permits at the end of this month, and we're actually going to start construction at the end of February. But the other really good news for us is there is some significant investment with the infrastructure funds that are in this year's state budget that will be released hopefully this year for shovel-ready projects. So we're shovel-ready. North Bay Children's Center's project is an example of what could happen once we finally get all the funding we need, because we will increase our capacity by 60% and be able to serve 190 children at that location as soon as construction is finished. And we're looking at April 2023, so for the end of the project.
I want to note that I don't think I will ever forget this. You are the only person I know that bought an acre and a half in Marin for $1.
Right?
Exactly. Any other great investments that you've made? No?
That was one of my best negotiations.
There you go.
So
I have you in my next negotiation. So I know earlier you talked about Garden of Eden, but I want to spotlight this very special program and have you go into a little bit in depth with the why, and I did say Garden of Eden.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And it's a trademark name. So yeah, Garden of Eden. So this was about 11 years ago when I started reading about the childhood obesity epidemic. Realized that we were part of the problem. We provided breakfast, lunch. It was awesome. Many of these children were, before we had a meal program, it was obvious they weren't eating breakfast in the morning, and they're oftentimes coming without a lunch. So it was really important that we provided that service. But then at the time, we were opening a lot of cans. We didn't have adequate storage for fresh produce, and we were didn't have enough money for staffing to have more than one chef. So it was a lot of opening canned vegetables, canned fruits, and big production to get these meals out. And it was obvious to me that we can make a difference. As I said earlier, because we have infants and toddlers, preschoolers that we serve, and we have infants who are eating solid foods for the first time with us, that we could really influence what it is that they're going to develop a taste for and a desire for. So wrote this grant. It was first funded by First Five Marin County. And it was one of those things like at 11 o'clock at night before the deadline, the project needed a name, and Garden of Eden sounded like a good name. I had no idea it was going to be a national model, 11 years later. But fast forward, and now we've sold 2 licenses, one to Easter Seal, Southern California, and one to Community Action Marin. So we are reaching, this curriculum not only reaches our 650 children annually, but now we're reaching another couple thousand just through this project that we just, through the licensing and the training portal.
You keep taking me back to my childhood. This is a weird experience for me here, but my flashback was kindergarten and canned spinach.
Yeah.
It scarred me for life. I have never recovered from it. The whole "you will turn into Popeye" thing clearly did not work. But to today.
Well, it's amazing how those experiences do impact our food choices. And I mean, my memories, I grew up with Italian grandparents who had, a veggie garden, and we loved the veggie garden because it was a great place for hide and seek. And that you could hide and eat, peas and corn while you're hiding, whatever. And that was kind of my vision for when we had all this space, we're going to create this gorgeous garden, was that it wasn't going to be fenced off, or it was going to be part of the play areas where children are riding their tricycles, through the corn maze and being able, it's a tasting garden. It's not a production garden, but being able to taste throughout the day and, when they're out playing. And it was funny because when we first started this and I was explaining this and we were constructing it, one of my head teachers came up to me and said, well, we have a problem, and that this is not going to be fenced off, that this is part of the playground. It's like, well, tell me what the issue is. I'm worried that the kids are going to fill up before lunch. Yeah. It's like, well, then we've done our job.
So I'm sure after hearing all that NBCC does for our families and our communities, our listeners, viewers are wondering how they can get involved and help, which brings us to our next section, Connection Corner. So many people probably don't know that over 75% of the families receive tuition assistance. So what kind of scholarships are available? How are those scholarships funded? How can the community help? And where can they go to find out information? People listen to the story, they want to get involved. Kind of give them that information.
Sure. Well, 90% of our income is earned income, and most of it comes to the California Department of Education. So that's where our subsidies come from. And in order to qualify, parents have to be working full-time or in school full-time, and they have to be able to provide that documentation. And most of the families we serve are essential employees. And so these are they're in the service industry. So a lot of poverty level families that we're providing services for. And in addition to the subsidies from the California Department of Education, we always also fundraise. So we raise about $800,000 a year to make all the programming that we've talked about earlier available. The Garden of Eden, for example, one would think that which makes that program that makes such a big difference in around health and nutrition and obesity prevention would come with some significant funding or ongoing funding. And that's all done through fundraising and grants. So we talked about the Bright Futures Capital campaign, and there's going to be a real push as soon as we pull those permits and begin construction to find the final funding and to complete this project. So we will be doing some significant community outreach in all the areas that we serve. And even though that project, the capital piece is happening in a certain location, that's the headquarters and the training and for all of the other locations. It supports all of our sites. So it really is a Marin and Sonoma County project. We cannot do this without community support and community investment.
Well, it sounds like time is of the essence. So you started this capital campaign, I think 8 years ago.
Right.
You're getting ready to get the final numbers. The longer it goes out, the bigger the number is. So there's a, and I think you said April 23 that is the goal.
2023 is
get this
the
done,
goal
so-
to move back
Yeah.
into our new building.
So you need some money to get this done and meet that goal. So that's very clear at this point in time.
We do, and there's also volunteer opportunities. I was actually on the phone with my team this morning saying, we are looking at these numbers and looking at the playgrounds and looking at the beautiful playgrounds that we're doing at our other locations, all the playscapes. And one of them is in Hillsburg that we just did a ribbon cutting for. That's just gorgeous that our team did. It's like if we, with community volunteers, it's like we could save $500,000 just doing a big volunteer blitz and and helping with the playground development. So we'll be looking at those opportunities as well. It's not just, obviously the money is important, financial support is important, but that in-kind hands-on support is really impactful as well.
So I'm glad you said that because that's a place for RCU. We've got almost 800 employees right now, and doing a project like that would be amazing. So put us on your list.
Put a pin in that.
There you go. So you've got a lot of experience. You've got a lot of education around this issue. You've seen it over a long period of time. What's the advice you have for parents right now with young kids? What would you say to them?
I think really paying attention right now to social, emotional needs of children. Our communities in the North Bay have been through a lot. I mean, prior to the pandemic, we've gone through the fires, and we're really seeing what trauma does and how it plays out in our classrooms with kids. And they live in a very unpredictable world right now. And parents are feeling it. We're all feeling it. We're all feeling the stress of the pandemic on the heels of the stress of the fires. And we have to keep an eye on our kids and really provide that emotional support in our classrooms at home. And kids are feeling really isolated right now, and they are feeling the anxiety that parents are feeling right now. And we just need to pay attention to that.
Yeah. I didn't know that was going to be your answer, but that's one of the things the Redwood Credit Union's been focused on. We have employees that have children that are impacted, and they're reading in the newspaper, the Press Democrat, the impact that the students are having. So we created a video series, age specific. We hired specialists in the field to do some videos for kids and parents to help them cope with what's going on. And it's not just the pandemic. We've got the layering effect of fires and floods and all those types of things. So we'll put a link to those videos because it was meant to be a community resource.
Yeah, that's great.
So thank you for your insights and time today, Susan. Is there anything else that you want to say to our viewers and listeners today before we go?
No, I just want to thank you, Redwood Credit Union, for hosting this and helping to raise that awareness, and for our viewers and our listeners to watch for local opportunities to become involved in the childcare system and solutions for building back our capacity. And because it does affect all of us, this is a community issue. So thank you.
It is a community issue. So thank you for joining us. And to all of our viewers and listeners out there, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.